Hey there, it's Susan. I'm taking a bit of a break from recording new episodes this month. I hope you're taking a break too. I hope you're listening to this episode somewhere beautiful and relaxing. And in the interest of encouraging breaks this month, I've picked out a few of my very favorite interviews about taking breaks and prioritizing rest. I hope you enjoy.
I want to, feel powerful and in control, or, I will finally feel like I'm a success if I can do X, Y, Z. And man, when you bring all of that stuff into your business becomes something else outside of a way to make money and have financial freedom, and it can be disastrous.
What kind of relationship do you have with your business? Are y'all ride or die BFFs? Or is your business a mean, demanding boss that makes you dread going to work? I'm Susan Bowles, and you're listening to Break the Ceiling, the show where we break down unconventional strategies you can use to save time, boost your profit, and increase your operational capacity. Nicole Lewis-Keeber is a business therapist and a mindset coach who works with entrepreneurs to create and nurture healthy relationships with their businesses. She's a licensed clinical social worker with a master's in social work, and she writes and speaks about the impact of small t trauma on businesses. But her biggest, most important work is in combining therapeutic processes with business coaching to help entrepreneurs build emotionally sustainable and financially stable businesses. Now, Nicole is the one who first introduced me to the idea that you're in a relationship with your business, one that you've created. So today we're going to talk about how your past experiences might be showing up in your business and creating limitations to your growth. We'll talk about how perfectionism and the need for control in your business are rooted in the need to feel safe, and how if you're one of those people who just can't seem to find the right system for your business, it might not be the systems. Hey, Nicole, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
So you work with entrepreneurs on their relationship with their business. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like what it's like and how that works?
Yeah, just the whole concept's a little weird, right? That you're in a relationship with your business. Usually I have to do a little bit of context around that. So I was a therapist for 18 years, and so relationships and improving relationship dynamics was part of my training. And so when I jumped over from being a therapist into working with coaches and healers and entrepreneurs and small business owners, and myself and my own business, I recognized pretty early out that we are not our business. It is something that is outside of us. Even though it's something we're creating and we love, it is not us. We are creating it. We are relating to it. And so therefore, we are in a relationship with it, and we can default into some really gnarly patterns when we don't realize that. So I help people set an intentional relationship with their business and, create the dynamics that work for them and that are not the default for them.
So what are kind of some of the most common triggers or traumas that you see with the business owners you work with?
So I think the very first thing that I see is that a lot of people are walking around with childhood trauma who don't recognize it or realize that that's what it is. And this is kind of a heavy subject. So, just to say that, if you are concerned for your well-being in any way, I'm going to be using the word trauma and won't go into too much detail, but, take care of yourself in this conversation. But the biggest thing I see is that a lot of the experiences that we have when we're children, create a desire to behave a different way when we're adults. And those patterns of behavior come into our business and we reenact them there. So I would say the biggest trauma pattern that I see is a desire to be in control, because being out of control and trusting other people, relying on them to do things, doesn't feel comfortable. And so they've engineered a life and a business where they get to be the one in control at all times. And so that, whenever that doesn't work out for them, it can be a huge trauma trigger, and it can just be a domino effect.
So when that is the trauma that they're dealing with, what kinds of impacts do you see that having on their business?
Oh my gosh, it's just so systemic because relying on someone is the behavior of trust, right? And so when trust is hard to come by, it's very difficult to rely on the people that you're working with to do their job and also to support you, to feel like you are off the hook for something, or that you have delegated it and so you get to exhale and let that go. Let someone else pick it up. And so the implications can be that maybe you're hiring employees to do a job and you're not letting them do it. And so therefore you're still doing the thing, you're getting in their way, and you're wasting money, obviously, because you're hiring someone to not let them do their job. So it can have financial implications as far as that. It can hold you back from creating success and financial sustainability in your business over the long term, because there's a lack of trust, and there's a lack of trust in the way that can work out for you and the systems that you can put in place for it, which again allows you have to have other people that you trust to build that wealth and that success in your business. We cannot do it ourselves. We're not meant to do this alone. We cannot do this alone. So it has financial implications. It has burnout implications. It has morale implications, because if you have a team of people who don't have ownership over their part because you keep stepping into it for that need to control because of that lack of trust, oh my goodness, like the morale and the turnover that can happen is quite catastrophic to the bottom line of the business.
Yeah. And, you're constantly training people over and over again. So you really can't build any momentum with anything because you're constantly replacing team members or just not able to grow anything when you're really just the bottleneck.
Right. You're not in your genius. Yep. You are the bottleneck. You are not living into, what your skill set is, which you obviously have one, because let's be honest, a lot of the entrepreneurs I know, a lot of the people I know who are entrepreneurial had some kind of childhood trauma they're trying to deal with, or that experience gave them a high skill set. So there's something that's important to them to create this, business. So, stay in your lane, basically, is what I'm saying. But I can't tell you how many times I say that to my clients. I'm like, you are out of your lane. And that's not why you created this business. You created it to do something else, to, express the things that you're curious and interested in, not to be working on spreadsheets. So yes, it becomes a bottleneck for sure.
So as with a lot of kind of mindset stuff, it can be really hard for folks to see either their specific trauma or how that is actually affecting or limiting the growth of their business. Kind of the idea that what is holding back the business is actually them and their trauma. So what are some of the ways that you help your clients kind of begin to start seeing these traumas for what they are, seeing them for themselves and seeing how that's kind of creating these issues in their business?
Yeah, so this is complicated. So it always starts out with a little bit of education. And because we as a culture and as a society do not define trauma in the ways that it actually happens. We only look at something called big T trauma as trauma, and those are the big ones. It's like domestic violence, PTSD, catastrophic illness, some unexpected event that changes everything that you had no control over. That type of thing we would describe as a big T trauma in the clinical world. But there's also something called small T trauma. And what these are cumulative effects, events that you had in your childhood that create a change in how you see yourself. And they take you off course of valuing yourself and seeing yourself in a more authentic way to you. And those can be things like being bullied, moving around a lot and being the new kid on the block all the time, maybe being a caretaker for a parent at an early age. And these are not things that we think of as being traumatic. We think of them as it's just suck it up. You had a rough childhood, or stuff happens to everybody, or whatever it may be. But those actual events are small T trauma, and so they have trauma responses to them. And so I spend a lot of time educating and normalizing the fact that these experiences that you had, that you can still see the impact on your life now, that they were indeed a traumatic event, and you've been responding to it as such in your body since then. And so we really have to kind of get clear on that, define that first. And, after we do that and they start to see, oh my goodness, yeah, that experience I had when I was 13 in the cafeteria absolutely is playing out in the relationship I have with my business partner right now, because I'm fearful that I can't trust them, or, that they're having the meeting behind the meeting, or, whatever that may be. Those things still play out. So we kind of have to unravel it a little bit, define it. And I always ask them, I'm like, why did you really start your business? And they'll say, I wanted to be my boss. I wanted to be able to have more control over my money and what my earning potential is. I didn't really want to have to answer to anyone. And I'll ask them, I'm like, but why did you really start your business? And then they look at me like, you're nuts. I just told you what I meant.
The thing I just said.
The thing I just said. And I'm like, okay, so let's take those answers off the table. What is the real reason that you started your business? And what will come up often is that if, they start... It's connecting it back to these childhood experiences. I started my business because I wanted to show my dad that I could be more successful than him. Or I wanted to prove to my high school coach that what he said about me was not true. Or, I want to, feel powerful and in control. Or, I will finally feel like I'm a success if I can do X, Y, Z. And man, when you bring all of that stuff into your business becomes something else outside of a way to make money and have financial freedom, and it can be disastrous.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of one of those issues that I think a lot of founders struggle. And let's talk a little bit about perfectionism and doing things, quote unquote, the right way.
Right.
So many business owners, myself included, get wrapped up in not being able to put something out into the world until it's perfect, until it's ready for prime time. And I think that can really hold us back, really limit the growth of our business. And the need for being perfect or being right can keep us from trusting our team members. It can keep us from doing important work, from having our light kind of shining in the world. So can you talk to me a little bit about how this shows up for your clients?
Yeah, so that perfectionistic piece, again, it all comes down to that control, where we have, control is an illusion. We really don't have, control over all the things, nor should we, because if we did, we would squash everything and it would never be as beautiful and brilliant as it could be. So thank goodness we don't. But there's usually some kind of underlying narrative there about if this is perfect, again, kind of like the same vein. And this is what I see is if this is perfect, then I'll finally be seen as a legitimate business owner. If this is perfect, then I will not be in the crosshairs of criticism or feedback that feels uncomfortable. So I have to make it perfect first to protect myself, because I don't know if I can handle that kind of criticism. So it goes from perfectionism to actually a way to try and control and manage safety for that person. And when they don't recognize that perfectionist piece of striving but never arriving, because you're not going to feel safe with a perfect product, because first of all, it'll never be perfect. And that's not how we find safety. So you're going to continue to not feel safe until you address what the issue is underneath that perfectionism. Does that make sense?
Yes. So talk to me a little bit about this need to feel safe, because I think a lot of our kind of business issues are actually rooted in that fear and that lack of feeling safe. So how do you work through that with your clients?
We call, one of the things is, first of all, we call a thing, which is why I use the word trauma and not overwhelm, because I think when we call it what it is, we can use the tools to address it. It normalizes it. It brings stigma down around it. And so a heavy dose of normalizing, a heavy dose of reminding people that we are still human beings with a biology, a brain, and a nervous system that is set up to keep us alive and to keep us in survival. And when you've had experiences in your childhood where you felt less than, or you felt picked on, or maybe someone didn't see you, maybe you didn't have a safe place to fall, or, even bigger than that, maybe you were unsafe. Your nervous system is set up to be in response and hypervigilance for that. So it's constantly trying to create systems and solutions for you to be safe. which is one of the reasons why a lot of the founders I work with created their businesses, because they wanted to try and feel safe outside of, the control of another system. And so we really have to get in there and normalize it, name it, honor your nervous system for doing what it's supposed to be doing, so you don't feel like it's personal, like it's some deficiency of your own, right? All of us have it, that reptilian brain that's like, not safe, don't do that, or won't be safe until it's completely 100% perfect. Then maybe we'll be safe. So we have to get in there, normalize it, and start to identify, maybe what were some of those messages that you got earlier on in your life about what it meant to be safe and what it meant to be perfect, what that outward appearance meant to the people around you. So it's a little bit of digging, and it feels very therapeutic in a lot of ways, but what it is much more transformational than therapy.
So talk to me a little bit about, are there any, practical tools or particular resources that you use with clients to kind of help them counteract these tendencies or work through this trauma?
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about early on is identifying the relationship that they have with their business, to determine, what is it? Is it demanding and demeaning, or, is it, loving and supportive? Like what dynamic have you set up in your business or your company? And we begin to start there to see, like, okay, if you're feeling like your business is not supportive of you and you can never do anything right, where have you felt that way before? Who in your life, was a authority figure, or someone in your home or you're in, school, who made you feel that way? And so we start to get underneath that a little bit. So it's a very practical tool to say, if your business was a person in your life right now, if you could, create an entity of it, who would it be? And is that working for you? Is that the relationship that you want? And if not, who would you like for it to be? How would you like to feel in it? And so we began to look at that, new relationship. So that's one place to look. Another really practical tool I use is I ask people, if you are bumping up against some kind of, skill, task, solution that tends to be something that you struggle with, maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's, like never allowing yourself any white space in your calendar. You're constantly over your schedule. You're scheduling yourself, and you have tried to put business solutions in place for that. Like maybe you got another calendar or a planner. If you're starting to see that there's a pattern that those business solutions don't work for you, it could be because there's an emotional issue underneath it that needs to be addressed before those systems will work for you. So we can do kind of like play the script backwards to say, okay, these are some of the practical protocol type things that you're struggling with right now. And you keep putting solutions in place that aren't working. So what could be there?
I love that. I see that often with the work that I do with clients, where we have put a system in place, or they are talking about how they've tried, this tool and that tool and this tool and that tool, and none of them are working. And it usually ends up at, oftentimes it's the business owner or the founder that is they are the ones that refuse to use the system. The team all on board with whatever system, like give us a system, give us direction, give us, like, they want to be doing good work. They want to be doing the right work, the effective work. Like nobody wants to show up to their job and feel like they're not making progress, or feel useless, or, feel like they can't do their job. Everybody wants that kind of ability to do good work. But usually when I am coming in and it is, we can't get anybody to use the system, it's usually we can't get the business owner to use the system that everybody else has bought into. And I think it's so interesting that you are, that's a symptom. Like that's a symptom of the problem, is if you've tried all of these different things, then maybe the issue is not the system. The issue is some underlying cause.
Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating to talk to you about the person who's putting in systems in place to manage trauma responses from the founders. Yep. When I'm on the other end of it. So I think that the most wonderful thing we can do is to try and provide those resources on both ends for folks. And let's be honest, no one's looking for their childhood trauma to come into their business and set up shop and create havoc. We aren't taught that that's a thing. We're taught that, you drop your baggage at the door when you start a business. When you go into work, you leave your home life, you leave it at home. And that's not how we are as human beings. That's not how we operate. It's just not so. Our experiences that we have create how we see the world and how we move through it. And so that comes with us, and we have to understand that so that we can begin, to have a heap of self-compassion and begin to change some of those, things to make it easier for the people around us as well. And, Brene Brown talks about, in her her Dare to Lead processes, that one of the biggest fears that they see when they go into companies is that people are fearful of becoming irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And so they resist the system, they resist the new technology, they resist the new policy. And in their resistance, which comes from fear and shame and that, vulnerability piece, they become irrelevant because they are completely resistant to all the new systems, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of irrelevance.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So I see a lot of founders doing that. It's like, this is my business. If I, this is not how I saw it going, or maybe, they don't recognize that there's an emotional issue that's playing out, so anytime you try and fix the thing, it's like you're trying to fix me. And so that I feel irrelevant. And so I'm going to get in the way of it and not consciously know I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was doing a lot of software implementations, one of the biggest kind of indicators of success was actually whether or not the project manager at the company, the person that was kind of the champion of let's bring in this new system, whether or not it became successful had very little to do with the actual tool that we were implementing, and really had to do with how well that person inside the company did with getting buy-in from the users. Were they selling it to them as, this is actually going to make your job easier. This is not going to make it irrelevant. We're doing this so that you can spend time on more important things or more interesting things, or this is going to make your job better or easier. And how well the kind of change champion did with that was actually, had nothing to do with whatever software we were implementing, and had everything to do with how well they managed their team's perception of the change. And I think that really speaks to like your idea of making them feel safe in the change, making them feel comfortable, making them feel like this is not going to make them irrelevant, and getting their buy-in was such a huge indicator of success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me, you mentioned a little bit about the relationship with your business and what a kind of destructive relationship looks like and what a healthy relationship looks like. And can you talk to me a little bit more about what it kind of looks like when you have either a healthy relationship with your business or an unhealthy relationship with your business? Like, what are some of the signs that folks could use to say, oh, maybe this isn't a good relationship with my business? Yeah.
So, I always say, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? If you feel like you're in a place of dread and that you can't do anything right and you created this business, then you created it to be a mean boss. So it's like, tapping into how you feel about it is a really good way to, kind of look at it. Have you created a mean boss for yourself, or is this a place for you to express your creativity and do the work that you were hoping to do? And some days it'll be both. But if the majority of the days is that you're waking up with dread and you're feeling like you're out of control, and this thing that was supposed to be, beautiful, fun, financially, freeing is not, then there's probably some dynamic there that needs to be tweaked. But there are some very practical ways to kind of look at this outside of the emotions. I was doing a lunch and learn one time for a group of people in IT, and it was how to fall in love with your business, lose the abuse, and have a hot and heavy relationship. And they were just looking at me because I was asking them to, identify the relationship they had now, and, to develop, some kind of business entity relationship that they wanted. Because I was explaining to them that, my business has a personality, and it's the ghost of Christmas Present from the Muppets movie. Because, because we need to be able to relate in order to change the dynamic of the relationship, right? It has to be something we can relate to. And I was asking them to write a love letter to their business and have their business write one back to them. And one of them said, he's like, listen, he's like, I really get what you're saying here. And he's like, and I understand. He's like, this is not the relationship I want to have, but I'm really kind of struggling with the love piece of it. Can you come again? And so I explained to him that your business can also be your ride or die buddy. Someone that you have a commitment to. And so when we can start to define what that commitment is, then we can start to figure out, is this what I really want for myself? And is this the business I've created? And that can look like by identifying what your values are, what your mission and vision are for your business, how you want to feel the work that you are doing in the world, and seeing if that is lining up. And it amazes me how many people will found these beautiful businesses and have success in them, and they've never identified what their true values are. And so they're constantly bumping around like a pinball machine. When you know your values, they anchor you. So, a business that is, demanding and demeaning, is going to feel like, you're never making enough money. You never have enough time. You never put out a perfect enough product. You don't think your clients like you. Your employees, you don't feel connected to them. And so you're constantly worried that they don't like you or they're not doing their job. And so you end up micromanaging them. Like it has so many tendrils to it. But what it comes down to is that you are untethered, and you haven't recognized what your values are, and you're not living into them through your business and letting your employees and your partners know what that is so that they can support you in that mission.
I like that. So is there anything you think we should talk about or touch on here that we haven't really talked about yet?
Yeah, I think what it boils down to is I see people every day who start businesses to fix some kind of childhood wound that they have not identified. And every day I see people create very successful businesses that they are burning out in, and that they want they feel trapped by, and they want to burn down. And so they'll come to me and they'll say, I can't do this anymore. I just want to stop, burn it down and start over. And what I have to tell them is, listen, you can burn it down and you can start over, but you're still going to bring you to the next, venture. So why don't we look at the option of making it do instead of burning it down and building it back up again? Because there is an ability to really correct and heal a lot of these childhood wounds if you know it's possible to do within your business as a founder. And so I always like to, kind of remind people that there's that option, because it's not a new business doesn't fix it. A new model doesn't fix it. We have to change how we see ourselves within our business and honor the fact that a lot of the skill sets that we have, we did kind of earn through some really hard times. But they've set us up to be highly entrepreneurial, and it's a skill set and a gift, but we can only embrace that fully when we know that it comes with kind of like, that shadow side to it that we have to pay attention to. And the businesses that I see that are running well, that have high morale with their employees, where they're nimble and can pivot and have a lot of flexibility, are the ones that have done this work because the bottom line does not reflect their worth. Their personal worth is not being played out in how the business is successful or what the numbers are or if the product is perfect. They know that there's a separation between them and the business, and that they are doing what they can and acting in integrity. But whether they make that million or make that perfect product or not, that their value as a human being is not wrapped up in that. And they've done that work somewhere. Either they've done it with a therapist, a coach, or maybe, they had a really supportive environment or some mentor who helped them see that, but they are not working out their worth in their business.
I think that's a perfect place to end on. So where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about what you do?
So they can, there's two places I hang out a lot. That is on Facebook, Nicole Lewis-Keeber Coaching. You can go to my website, nicole.lewis-keeber.com. I would say that's probably the place I'm least active, because it requires, all the updates. So if you really want to know what's going on with me in the world and what's going on and what I'm offering and all those things right now, I think Facebook is probably the best place to find me because I update there every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I think this was really valuable, good information.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you're doing on the other side.
As Nicole pointed out, even something as seemingly simple as being bullied as a child can have powerful impacts in your business and on your ability to lead and trust your team, or even just having a team at all. But it's not always easy to tell that that's what's happening, especially while you're in the thick of it. It's striking that the question Nicole uses is the same one I do. Why? Why are you doing that? What's the reason behind it? And while the answers might be different, whether you're talking about a mindset issue or an operational one, the question is just as powerful. Understanding why you're taking the actions you are is the key to fixing them. It is the universal tool of business coaches everywhere and the best practical tool I can give you. For every decision or action you take in your business, make sure you understand why you're doing it. And if you can't answer it first, keep digging. Break the Ceiling is produced by Yellow House Media. Our executive producer is Sean McMullen. Our production coordinator is Lou Blazer.